माननीय कुमार केतकर जी 10 मिनट्स। माननीय कुमार केतकर जी 10 मिनट्स सर।
कितने मिनट?
10 minutes.
Well, at the outset, I want to reiterate what Honorable Member Muhammad Ali Khan just said.
When allotted, please speak. Please speak.
Well, at the outset, I want to reiterate what Honorable Member Muhammad Ali Khan said, that the first woman finance minister was Mrs. Indira Gandhi, though she was also the Prime Minister. So the exclusive finance ministry may have gone to Nirmala Sitharaman ji, but she has another credential which is first, and that is she belongs to the widely condemned and abused Jawaharlal Nehru University. So she does not come from the Tukde Tukde gang, but she comes from Jawaharlal Nehru University. Another member of the ministry is Mr. Jayashankar. Yeah, so in all three. So in a way, Jawaharlal Nehru University is definitely contributing immensely to the ministry led by Narendra Modi. Incidentally, it was Indira Gandhi who took initiative in founding the very Jawaharlal Nehru University. But these days it is fashionable to either forget or condemn Indira Gandhi as well as Nehru, and this happens to be Jawaharlal Nehru University and founded by Indira Gandhi. Now the point that I want to bring here is that a lot of mention has been made about what has happened in last 70 years or has not happened in last 70 years, and what has been given the private sector initiatives and so on. The so-called public sectors which are supposed to be on sale in next about 5 years were created by Jawaharlal Nehru, not because he wanted them as a personal or dynastic power center, but he thought that at that point of time the imperialist countries from the West were not giving a farthing to India. They were not ready to invest. They were not ready to do anything. There was no other option for Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru to invest through the public sector. And without that public sector, or for that matter, without the nationalization of banks done by Mrs. Indira Gandhi in 1969, after which she became the finance minister in 1970, the Janadhan Yojana or all the other banks would not have come about at all. There were only few hundred branches in the urban centers, and after she nationalized the banks, in next 10 years, several lakh branches opened in rural areas, and to say that rural areas were ignored by the earlier governments, particularly by Nehru and Indira Gandhi, is not only absurd, it is ahistorical. And therefore, it is necessary to remember that Indira Gandhi opened the rural branches of the banks, without which the green revolution was not possible at all, the white revolution was not possible at all. It is the rural branches, regional rural banks, that created the atmosphere for the rural development and also urban development, because migration also began to be controlled. Another factor, as I was mentioning about the public sector, was that public sector came because the Western countries were denying any kind of assistance, and in fact, Britain, Europe and America had decided not to help India at all for two reasons. One is India was fighting globally via non-alignment movement the imperialist forces, the racialist forces, the colonial forces, and was demanding total freedom. And that total freedom was not only the independence which we achieved in 1947, that total freedom was not only for India, it was also for the global people, global countries which were newly liberated in Africa. In fact, let us not forget that after the Second World War was over in 1945, India became free in 1947, China became communist formally in 1949. Between 45 and 47, we were in terrible condition, and when 47 came, Jawaharlal Nehru was not elected Prime Minister, he was nominated Prime Minister, and he had the great challenge of creating a modern scripture for India. And that modern scripture for India, that modern script for India was created by him in 1947. In fact, the adult franchise was the creation of that constitution in which Pandit Nehru, Ambedkar, Patel and everybody contributed. So by forgetting all that, we cannot say that we are changing history and bringing new India. And that new India, why this in budget is important, because that new India that we want to bring about via budget is also dependent on whatever we achieved in the first 5-year plan, in the second 5-year plan in 1957, in which the heavy industries were created. Without those heavy industries in steel, coal and oil, etc., we would not have become self-reliant. And talking about self-reliance nowadays in a very ridiculous manner, let us not forget, while we talk about 100% foreign capital, we must remember that we had 100% Indian capital in most of these Durgapur, Bhilai Steel and so many companies. In fact, even the Chandrayaan that we will soon have was the creation of ISRO, which was built during Indira Gandhi's time, at Indira Gandhi's initiative, and the foundation of that was made by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru by founding IITs. All the Silicon Valley and all the software engineers that Indians are working today there are creation of those IITs, those IIMs and those Silicon projects, and later Rajiv Gandhi's policy of computerization. Without that computerization, 40 lakh Indians who are today making contribution to the global economy, to the global technology and even to India, and while they support more often Ayodhya Ram Mandir, they must remember that they also are the product of Nehru, Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi. You may call them dynasty, or you may call them Congress, or you may call them India. I call them India and not dynasty. But the point is, we talk about Swachhata Bharat and so much has been allocated for Swachhata Bharat projects. But let us not forget the recently released film Article 15. And Article 15 film clearly shows where the so-called Swachhata Bharat stands. Swachhata Bharat today, the people who work, the workers who work in Swachhata Bharat, all the gutters cleaning is done by the people who are paid least, and the maximum number of deaths, as often mentioned here, are in those drainages and those gutters. Their wages are lowest ever. Their wages are lowest. They are completely underprivileged. They are thrown out of the general social system. And if Swachhata Bharat is a genuinely honest, intentional project, then it is necessary to increase their salaries, living conditions should be better, and unless that happens, we cannot just say how many toilets were created. How many toilets were built is less important than what kind of wages, what kind of working conditions all these workers who work in drainages and gutters have. I think it is also important while defining the budget for the Swachhata project. I also want to bring to your notice that there is nothing about the railway modernization as far as Mumbai is concerned. Let me bring to your notice that as many as 4,000 people die every year on the railway tracks of Mumbai. Only suburban railway tracks of Mumbai. I am not incorporating Mumbai-Pune or Mumbai-Baroda track. I am merely mentioning Mumbai to Vasai and Mumbai to Kalyan. 4,000 people die every year on those tracks. And why? Because they are overcrowded trains, overcrowded platforms, absolutely no facilities to passengers. So many times there have been explosions by the people, direct spontaneous explosions of people by throwing stones or gherawing the railway general managers. Nothing has been done, nothing has been suggested. So far, railway budget used to have some special discussion on the Mumbai railway specifically, because Mumbai has something like 80 lakh commuters per day. 80 lakh commuters per day, because Mumbai's overall metropolitan population is nearly 2 crores, which is the population equivalent to whole of Sri Lanka. That many people traveling every day, dependent entirely on the public transport and that of railway. We talk of urbanization, we talk of public transport, and we talk of railway modernization without taking into account the conditions of Mumbai passengers and Mumbai railway. I think it is necessary for that to take special mention in the railway section of the budget. I'll take one more point, and I think I should be able to finish during the time given to me, that we talk about farmers doubling their income. Farmer is not one monolith community. Farmer is landless laborer, farmer is dryland farmer, farmer is small holding farmer, farmer is middle farmer, farmer is rich farmer, and farmer is super rich farmer. Now, when you decide to double the income of the farmer, which farmer's income you want to double? The landless laborer farmer's income is 0. So you will make it double 0. Or if it is 1, you will make it 2. And the rich farmer's income is huge in lakhs and sometimes even in crores. So you will want to double his income. There is nothing like one farmer community called monolithic community as farmer. Farmers and majority, about 60% of the farmers in India are either landless laborers, agricultural laborers, or small farmers, or dry land farmers. And forget the tribals altogether. Tribals' land is being taken over without paying adequate compensation, and we talk about land reforms. We talk about rights of tribals. We talk about tribal commissioners getting more rights, and we do not discuss about how the land is being taken away from the tribals for the benefit of multinational corporations, from the Indian corporations, or for the government projects. Unless we help those tribals directly on their land, and similarly help these farmers, that is landless laborers, small farmers and dry land farmers, there is no question of benefiting them, influencing them, or doubling the farmers' income. That will only double the rich farmers' income, and that will only prove that this government essentially is working for the rich class in the name of the poor. They will take the name of the poor, they will take the projects of the poor, but essentially they will work for that particular class in the name of development, and saying that percolation effect will take place, and once the upper class earns more money, it will also percolate downwards. It doesn't happen, it has not happened anywhere, and privatization projects have failed. And to think that all those huge number of unemployed people will join the startup gang, it is not possible. You may have seen the media reports that majority of the startup projects took money from the banks and they failed. More than 60% of the startup projects have failed. And it is not just getting idea and starting a project on startup basis. It is not possible for every young person. Nearly 60 to 70% young people are in rural or semi-rural or semi-urban areas who have no skills, no ideas, no environment to start a startup project. So these ideas of startup projects and doubling farmer income are very attractive to hear. Particularly for those urban people, they find it extremely attractive because they are also as disconnected as the ruling party is. They are as disconnected as the ruling party is from the actual problems of the people, and if they had known, and if they had identified the problems, if they had identified the actual problems of the poor people, actual problems of the unemployed, these fancy ideas who may work for 10% of the youth will not necessarily benefit everybody. So it is necessary, it is necessary to redefine modernization of railway, incorporating Bombay Suburban Train. It is necessary to redefine the startup project. It is necessary to define the skills project. It is necessary to redefine what is farmer and what is his doubling of the income. It is necessary to redefine the urbanization project. Just by giving slogans, I was quite amazed. As somebody has famously said, there are lies, damn lies in statistics. Sometimes while listening to the figures by the Prime Minister or even in the President's speech, I thought that we are, the beneficiaries in this country are more than actual population of the country. So many people were benefited, so many people were supposed to have been benefited. So many lakhs and crore people have been benefited by these so-called schemes, that I have thought that the population is perhaps lesser than the beneficiaries. I think it is necessary to redefine every single slogan, every single term, and every single financial allocation, without which this budget will have not much of a meaning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.